solos are disappearing from modern music and why that's a huge mistake. Here's a hot take that'll make your Spotify algorithm cry. Guitar solos are disappearing from modern music faster than your bank account on rent day. Once upon a time, a solo was the emotional climax of a song. Now it's been replaced by an awkward beat drop or yet another verse nobody asked for. Let's talk about why music has lost its balls and why losing the solo might be the dumbest move in music history. The death of the solo. It used to be every song had a solo. Now, if you hear one, you think your playlist accidentally shuffled to 1987. And that's a very true thing. And let's talk about solos and why they're important, right? Sometimes they provide the emotional climax of the song. Sometimes they give you a break from the singer's voice, right? And sometimes they give a break to the singer. Now, look, man, anybody that's sung professionally or sung in a band or sung for a long period of time can tell you that, man, if you're constantly singing, and you don't get any break in the song, you're not getting time to breathe, you're not getting time to hydrate, perhaps, during the solo. I mean, how many lead singers have you seen reach back for that red solo cup and tip it back and cheers the crowd while the guitar player's playing a solo? We always kind of viewed that in the 80s as, giving the singer a break, creating some melodic excitement. And, here's the deal. Today's guitar solos are like landlines, technically still around, but no one uses them. It's seemingly that, and I even heard this in country radio years ago, a decade ago, they talked about removing the guitar solos from country songs. Of all places, the last bastion of the guitar, perhaps, is either metal or country music. Those are the two genres where it's absolutely necessary to have guitars. Now, in metal, I don't think the guitar solo's ever going away, but in pop music, in country music, it's been shortened. A lot of times what equates for a guitar solo is the little intro, boop, beep, boop, 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 boop. Boop, boop, the little melodic piece that goes, and maybe they repeat that in the middle somewhere, and that's called the solo. But how many of us, and there were bands in the past where you couldn't wait to get to the guitar solo because the guitar solo was always great, even if you didn't like the song. But man, here's the deal. And look, I notice it in my daughter. She'll be listening to the radio, and if there's a song with a long guitar solo, she's like, where's the vocals? Where's the singing? And I have to explain to her that, look, sometimes the guitar solo speaks more and says more than the actual lyrics. But man, I think, maybe it's the new generation. Maybe it's people are just so used to having everything so quickly now that they just want to get to the lyrics. They don't want any distraction. Just sing along so I can continue doing what I'm doing in my day. But man, how many of us back in the day would lean back and stare at the album cover and listen to the solo and be blown away by the talent of the guitar player? And that was a reason why many of us, me included, would purchase an album hoping that there would be amazing guitar solos on it. Nobody buys albums anymore. The golden era of solos. Hendrix, Page, Gilmore, EVH. These guys didn't just play notes, they wrote entire emotional autobiographies in 16 bars. A solo wasn't about showing off. Okay, sometimes it was, but it was also about taking you somewhere lyrics couldn't. You know, how many times, and it's an art for a guitar solo to match the intensity or the emotion or the melancholy of the lyrics of the vocal performance. And sometimes the peak of the song, you know, like Comfortably Numb, the peak of the song is the guitar solo. And don't forget to turn it up when the guitar solo comes on, because now you're going to really hear something. Now you're going to really get some emotional content. It's seemingly gone. Why they're gone? The producer era. Now it's all loops, beats, and top-line melodies. A guitar solo takes up valuable TikTok time, bro. Producers say solos clutter a mix. Translation, they don't know how to EQ around a Les Paul. You know, that's maybe these days. And look, man, on my channel interviewing Ira Dean, and he'd gone out to LA and been hired to write for a big name artist. And they go into the studio and he comes up with a melodic hook for a song that he's going to play on his guitar. And it's an acoustic guitar. And, the engineer there, the producer there, he said, "Hey man, you want me to play this part? Because everything that had been created on the laptop. Hey man, you want me to play this little guitar hook? Oh yeah, that's cool. How would we do that?" He didn't even know how to mic an acoustic guitar. He didn't know how to take a line out, mic it, you know, do whatever it took to get that guitar input in there, to get some sense of reality. So look, man, if today's producers don't know how to EQ guitars, if they don't know how to make a solo cut through a mix, guess what? It's not going to cut through a mix. And if the guitar solo doesn't cut through the mix, people aren't going to really hear it. And more importantly, they're not going to really feel it. The culture shift. We went from how fast can you play to how many followers can you buy. That's the reality that we're in now. Nothing seems real, including in some cases the guitar solos, right? People are cheating. People are using technology, which, here's the deal, man. People are cheating. They're just making it feel like everything we hear is a lie. One person like a Giacomo Tura can ruin the entire culture, spoil it for everyone. That is the reality of this culture shift, right? When people took the golden goose of a guitar solo, a great guitar solo, and made it into absolute fakery, right? Music has stopped being about skill and started being about vibes, which is great if you're an air freshener. But here's the deal, man. We need to bring back the real guitar solos, the raw solos, the solos that might even have a mistake in the middle of it, or the solos that might fall apart at the end. Because that reality is what the world is missing now. The consequences of no solos. Without solos, songs lost their drama, their emotion, their moment of catharsis, right? I'm telling you, man, back in the day, I would buy an entire album from a group. I'd pay the $10 just to hear the solos, right? There were many albums where I didn't like the songs, but I loved the guitar playing. And the reality of it is now, if you take the solos out, you take that spark, you take that fire, and you throw it in the producer's trash can because you don't know what to do with it, and it takes real talent to create, that kind of emotional release in a song, well, then you've just eliminated a whole side of people who may want to hear that. And you know what? People who have not experienced that don't know that it's missing, right? The generations that grew up on laptop production have no idea of the emotional catharsis of an amazing guitar player. It's like watching a Marvel movie without the final fight scene. What's the point? That's what it's like when you have no solo. Now, the future, will solos return? I think they will, because eventually even Gen Z will realize a synth loop can't make you cry like a bent note with soul. AI can fake a solo, but it'll never fake the feel. We've got to bring the emotion back into music. You've got to bring back the human element. You can still use your loops. You can still use your beats. But here's the deal. Back in the day, they would put a guitar over top of that loop. They would put a guitar solo in the middle of that track to put some real human element in the song, right? Without that human element, without an emotional content, what do you have? Just a bunch of click and drag garbage, right? So enough with the click and drag, enough with the copy and paste, right? Here's the deal, man. If you're recording guitars, right, it's really easy to record a perfect chorus and then just click and drag and you know, put it throughout the tune wherever the chorus pops up. But man, there's nothing better than having real guitars through the whole track. Don't be a lazy ass. Record the chorus each time. Yeah, there might be some slight variations from one chorus to the next. And a great guitar player will use that to his advantage. He'll add a little extra spark in those power chords in the last chorus, right? Keep it real, man. Add as much human element as you can to your modern production techniques. Your audience will thank you. I will thank you. And ultimately, you're going to feel better about your production. Now, here's the call to action. Guitarist, keep shredding. Producers, stop being afraid of 6 strings. And listeners, demand music that makes you feel something again. So yeah, maybe guitar solos aren't trendy, but neither was vinyl. And now look who's back in style. Because at the end of the day, music needs moments that break rules, bend strings, and light your soul on fire. And if we lose the solo forever, we lose the one part of the song that proves we're still human.